But let's move in 11 through 20, Dave. I'll start off by giving Ricky's rankings, then you'll give your rankings, then I'll give my rankings, then we'll give the cumulative rankings, and then we'll talk about the rankings.
So many rankings.
Let's start off with Ricky's 20. At 20, he has Jarrett Culver of the Minnesota Timberwolves. At 19, he has Kelly Oubre Jr. of the Phoenix Suns. At 18, he has Taurean Prince of now the Brooklyn Nets. At 17, he has DeAndre Hunter of the Atlanta Hawks. At 16, he had OG Anunoby of the Toronto Raptors. If you want to hear our thoughts about OG Anunoby and the way that he can grow his game, check out the 21 through 30 segment because we already talked about him. At 15, we have Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets. 14, we have Will Tetril Barton. At 13, we have Brandon Ingram of now the New Orleans Pelicans. At 12, he had Harrison Barnes of the, I was going to say Golden
Sacramento
State Warriors.
Kings.
That was
bricklaying Harrison Barnes.
2 teams ago. Right state, though. Harrison Barnes of the Sacramento Kings. And then at 11, Jeremy Lamb of now the Indiana Pacers.
Absolutely. And at number 20, I had Kevin Knox. At 19, it's Miles Bridges. 18, Kelly Oubre Jr. At 17, Cedi Osman. At 16, Will Barton. 15, Jonathan Isaac. 14, Taurean Prince. 13, Eric Gordon. At 12, Jeremy Lamb. And 11, and this hurt me, Gordon Hayward.
Oof.
Because, let me just say this, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum are interchangeable at the 3 and the 4.
Yes, but
just going to get that out of the way.
We got yelled at for putting Jason Tatum at the 3 last year, so we moved him to the 4.
And now we're going to get yelled at for putting Gordon Hayward at the 3 this year.
Probably. At 20 for me, I have DeAndre Hunter of the Atlanta Hawks. At 19, I had Kyle Anderson of the Memphis Grizzlies. At 18, I had Cedi Osman. Cedi Osman of the Cleveland
Jed
Cavaliers.
with an eye at the eye.
17, I had Will Barton of the Denver Nuggets. At 16, I had Kelly Oubre Jr. of the Suns. At 15, I had Jeremy Lamb of the Indiana Pacers. 14, I had Taurean Prince of the Brooklyn Nets. 13, I had Eric Gordon of the Houston Rockets. 12, Harrison Barnes of the Golden Dallas Kings. And then at 11, I had Jonathan Isaac of the Orlando Magic. And then our cumulative ratings, Dave, give it to us.
DeAndre Hunter at number 20. At number 19, it's Cedi Osman.
Thank you.
At number 18, it's Miles Bridges. At 17, it's Kelly Oubre Jr. At 16, it's Jonathan Isaac. At 15, somehow it's Will Barton. At 14, it's Taurean Prince. At 13, it's Jeremy Lamb. 12 is Eric Gordon. And 11 is Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, a lot of guys to talk about here. Let's start off first with Kelly Oubre, because he was a guy that came on with the Suns after being traded from the Wizards in the Trevor Ariza deal and played pretty well for the Phoenix Suns. I think the one question that Suns fans might have is now bringing in Ricky Rubio that slides Devin Booker over to the 2, and then that forces either Oubre or Mikal Bridges out of the lineup. That also, it should have also freed up a spot in some ways because they got rid of TJ Warren, but Mikal Bridges most likely now out of the lineup. Why Oubre over Bridges?
I'm going with Oubre over Bridges. While they're both very good players, I think right now Oubre is a better complementary piece to Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton in this lineup. He's someone who, good defender, and he can guard bigger guys because they are going to roll with Dario at the 4. Mm-hmm. So you need someone who can kind of be a 3-4 tweener depending on the lineups. And Oubre defensively is really good. Bridges also is very good defensively. Like, those are the two guys who basically changed their defensive rating from the season when they're like, oh yeah, let's give these guys minutes and look at their defensive rating switch completely over when that happens. So I like both of them for their defensive ratings. I think it's going to end up being Oubre because right now he's shown that he can carry more of a scoring load than Bridges. Bridges shown he's just right now a spot-up shooter in his role, which is fine for, first-year player. Mm-hmm. So I like Oubre's upside. I just think the man has just a mile to grow in basketball IQ.
Yeah, and you look at Oubre, he started 12 of the 40 games he played in Phoenix, and I think Bridges started like 58 of 82 or whatever like that. But Oubre was just a better player out there. He was not as efficient as Mikal Bridges, but he was putting up like 17 points a game. And he was moving the ball around efficiently, and he was playing good defense. Like, the basketball IQ is not there, but I think if you take the ball out of his hands a little bit less and you are setting him up more by using Devin Booker's passing ability in some ways. I mean, he's not a great passer, but he just pass it. And then obviously Ricky Rubio, the guy that went above Steph Curry for his passing. It might help Kelly Oubre just be more efficient out there and get better looks. And I think Oubre, I think deserves that shot just a little bit more, because when we were talking about Bridges, we were like, this guy's going to be an NBA player for years, but he might never be great.
Right.
And I think
we kind of pegged him almost like Danny Green light.
Yeah, and I think we kind of saw spurts of that last year where he had some pretty good games. I think he had a couple games where he was over 20 points per game, but there was other games where he was just not worked into the lineup and into the offense just due to where he is limited, not being the best ball handler, not being the best driver, not being the best shot creator for himself. He is fairly limited offensively, where Oubre showed last year that he can add that pop to this offense. And if you're not using Ayton like they didn't last year, you're going to need scoring from somewhere else than Devin Booker. And I was talking to somebody on Twitter, it was Negro Damas. He was saying that Devin Booker can now score 30 points per game for the Phoenix Suns. And I don't know about that. But if he's getting better looks from Devin Booker and Kelly Oubre is taking off some pressure, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, if he gets back to where his average 3-point percentage was, it would have been probably close to 30 points a game. Like, so that's the thing.
I was just throwing it out there because when he first said that, I was like, what the fuck?
Here's the interesting thing is
Oubre could be interesting.
Yeah, both the guys that the Wizards let go last year, in Otto Porter and Kelly Oubre, both had more success on the team they landed on.
Yeah, it's almost like the Wizards fucking suck. It's almost like Scott Brooks is a horrible coach. God damn it. Like, they didn't sign anybody. They let everybody walk. They literally made like 2 signings this year. They did not make their team better. I'm sorry.
I set them up, but you knock them down.
We already talked about the Wizards, and I don't understand what they spent more effort trying to get guys to sign players than actually trying to sign players. And I understand you fired Ernie Grenfeld, but they were like, oh, we're going to spend half of our offseason trying to poach Masai Ujiri away from the Toronto Raptors and Tim Conley away from the Nuggets. Like, why would they want to leave? Why are you being so stupid? Like, you aren't being the Knicks or the Lakers. Like, this isn't like a storied franchise. You're the Wizards.
Yep.
You haven't done anything. Do something. Anyways, another interesting player. We can just go right into the Denver Nuggets. You were saying that Will Barton somehow landed at 15. You want to talk a little bit about Will the Throw?
I just feel like Will Barton I always had like this mentality that he was better than his stat line said. And then I know last year he wasn't able to play the entire year, but it comes down to like, are you still good enough to stay the starter on this team that is super deep, has a ton of young potential players?
Yeah.
And like, I easily see Malik Beasley being able to step in and take over that role. And that's just like literally the first name that pops in my head. Imagine if Michael Porter Jr. learns, to stay healthy and not get broken every 8 months.
Yeah.
Like that, then you have another good problem to have. But Will Barton is a guy who he's on an interesting contract, and I don't know if he is going to live up.
Yeah, that contract right now, he's got 3 years left, a player option in 2021, 2022. He's most likely going to accept that. He's going to be making $14.6 million that year, but he's got 12.7 this year, then 13.7, and then 14.69, like I said, on a player option. The other interesting name that you didn't bring up there, but like you said, a lot of interesting guys like Beasley, like Michael Porter Jr., Bobo's definitely not playing the 3, but he is a young player. The other guy is Jeremy Grant. And that was the thing is, I think the biggest thing that comes down to this is if Will Barton doesn't play good, they have the guy to replace him in Jeremy Grant. And Jeremy Grant was a guy who played the 5 for OKC last year.
He does everything.
But he found his 3-point shot. And he found his 3-point shot with great playmakers in Russell Westbrook and a great scorer in Paul George.
Yeah.
And now you have the king of playmaking in Nikola Jokic, and you have 2 good passing guards in Gary Harris and Jamal Murray out there. So you assume that Jeremy Grant is not going to take a step back 3-point wise. So if Will Barton, if they do start him just because of his contract and what he was able to do before for the Denver Nuggets, if they do start him and he goes out and does what he did last year of being inefficient, 40% from the field, 34% from 3, if he does that again, we might see him get knocked out of the starting lineup. And I think the reason why they're also going to give him another shot is, like you said, dealing with injuries, missed half the season.
Yeah.
So maybe he wasn't fully healthy there. But if he is not able to fit in there, they can fill in that spot perfectly. And this team will need that because this team might have one of the better starting lineups in the NBA if they're able to figure out this position fully. And then whether that be Will Barton, which it can be, or Jeremy Grant, or some of these young players.
Or Beasley, or Torrey Craig.
Yeah, this could really be the final piece to this Denver lineup that could become one of the killers out in the Western Conference.
Yeah, no, Their team is so fucking deep and
So
so
good.
loaded. I love it.
So good. And imagine if Michael Porter Jr. is healthy. Imagine if Bobo is healthy. How are you stopping it? Because then you have Monte Morris coming off the bench who literally doesn't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane how good this team is. And now after this next year, they're going to have Paul Millsap come off the books. And that's like $33 million free for them to add to this team. This is why I'm in love with Denver.
I understand.
And we're talking about one of their worst starter right now in Will Barton. And we're like, this could just change their team drastically.
I mean,
if
he's
he
a guy who
doesn't
was putting
start
up
for them.
15 points a game on like 37% shooting the year before. He definitely took a step back, and I wonder, where's the meeting where, because he had built up. It was like, I think it was like a 9 point, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15.
Yeah.
Like he's building himself up, getting a bigger role, but I really think the progression of having a point guard who is truly emerging for that Nuggets team, I really like Jamal Murray a lot.
Yeah.
Like a lot. He's just such a good fucking shooter out there. So I think that him taking over is half the reason that why the numbers won't be there for Will. And the other half, like I said, is if he's just inconsistent with his shot, he's going to get walked off the court to that second unit.
And Will Barton last year was at 11 and went down to 15. And I was surprised looking at my rankings and your rankings and even Ricky's rankings. Ricky only had him at 14.
Yeah.
You had him at 16. I had him at 17. I was still surprised they ended up at 15. So that was one thing that was kind of shocking
Smack
to
dab
me.
in the middle.
Yeah. So shout out to Will Barton though. We still love him, and him coming off the bench. That could even kind of unlock his game a little bit more. If he doesn't have that starting pressure, and if he's going up against twos, that might make their bench even more deeper. And like literally
More deeper.
Like literally, this team's disgusting.
Yeah.
Let's move now to, I think, a guy that will stay with younger players in some way. We were talking about Oubre. Barton's not young, but I do want to go into a horrible transition into Jonathan Isaac. I should probably just say the guy that's in the middle of them, Will Barton at 15, Kelly Oubre at 17, Jonathan Isaac at 16. What am I missing? Jonathan Isaac is ready for a blow-up. This kid is about to be a stud in this league, and I don't know why y'all are sleeping on him.
I'm not sleeping on him.
I'm at 15.
Yeah.
That's sleeping.
Is that?
Sleeping.
Is that for a guy
Dave.
who couldn't get double-digit points?
Dave, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
He's an incredible defender.
Here's the thing. When you're talking about the NBA,
Yep.
if you don't have them in your top 5, you're sleeping.
Oh, okay.
Even
okay.
if they're a bad player, you're sleeping.
Then I'm sleeping.
Yeah, you're sleeping.
Look, he is huge. He is long. He is a great defender. Absolutely a great defender.
Insane defender.
He guards fucking 3 through 5, and I've even seen him match up on 2s and hold his own.
I could see him guard ones.
I'm not getting there yet. His footwork might not be.
Here's the thing. Ben Simmons is a 1.
Ben Simmons is a 1.
So he can guard Ben Simmons.
Okay, I'll asterisk that one.
I'm going to give this guy as much gas as possible.
He has potential to be a very good player. He needs to get his shot down. He can actually ball handle decently well for a man of his size, like definitely above average for anyone in his height bracket.
Yeah.
The question for me is just that shot, because he has had stretches where it looked really good. Like I was all over him in Summer League last year. I was like, this kid is a stud. He's gonna be great. Look at him out there clowning on these kids. And then during the season, obviously he was only able to play in 75 games. But like the thing with that team was, they were rolling out without a true point guard. But at the end of the day, their defense carried them, and that's what got them a playoff spot. And I expect that to put them in the contention for a playoff spot this year in the East. I just don't know offensively if he has made the step to be an efficient shooter, because that's a massive step for him to take, because he was shooting pretty low.
You're absolutely correct there, and that's the part that is going to be kind of the crux of whether he's going to take a step up. I will say on 0 dribbles on those shots, he was shooting around like 43%. And from 3 it was like 33%, which isn't great, but we also have to look at that was pretty much his rookie year last year. I mean, in the first year, he wasn't fully healthy, played 27 games, started 10, only got like 19 minutes in those games. Last year, he nearly played 2,000 minutes. So last year was pretty much his full like rookie year. And I do wonder if he's able to do that. His stroke is nice as well. Like, it's not a broken shot. Like, it's not an ugly jumper. He's got a nice jumper. I think if he's got more consistency and an offseason to work on that, he can get it to league average. And if he's league average there, that's going to boost his field goal percentage. He could probably shoot like 45, 35, and he's a decent free throw shooter. And I think really the biggest thing that might unlock his entire offensive potential is if Markelle Fultz is there, and we know what Markelle Fultz can do as a passer. I'm just saying as a passer. I'm not even saying as a scorer. If they use him cutting to the basket, because he is so long and he could be such a big receiver and he can use his body at the rim, and he is a fairly efficient free throw percent shooter. And if he's able to unlock that and just put up like 13 points a game, 14 points a game, maybe even a little bit lower than that, but just efficiently with the defense that he plays, I honestly think that he's going to be an absolute stud. I mean, he had a defensive rating of like 106, and he had an offensive rating of 107, which is fairly decent.
Yep.
And if he gets that up to like, 113, and then I think he could probably get that back down to like 104 defensively, I think he can be an absolute two-way stud for this team. And maybe he's not going to be a star in any way, but I think he could be one of the best two-way players in the league with the potential that he has and the size that he has. Now, it might not be, this year that he turns into that two-way stud, but I think we might see the next step for him to take to come closer to that level this year, because I honestly think that Jonathan Isaac has everything that he needs in place to put it forward. I think he just needs that time to do so, and he got this offseason, and now he'll get this full entire year if he stays healthy to do that. I'm in love with this player.
I agree. I love him a lot. I'm just hesitant because I've fallen in love with these guys who play incredible defense and can't shoot before. I don't know if you remember how high I was on Michael Kidd-Gilchrist.
Yeah. But Michael Kidd-Gilchrist had the most ugly looking shot ever.
Yeah.
Jonathan Isaac can shoot. Like he was shooting like 81% from the line. He was a decent shooter in college. Like I do think that the bones are there for Jonathan Isaac to become a decent shooter.
No, I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying I've become more hesitant on guys who are so lopsided in their gameplay. And look, I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a stud. I don't know if he's ever going to shoot 45% from the field, and that's why I'm hesitant to give him that. The fact that he's taking the shots, I'm happy,
I think
though.
he could shoot 45% from the field.
He just needs to work on his shot selection. The problem is, right now, they went back in on Vucevic, which is a good thing for them because they stuck with Bamba as a uber raw center, and Kem Birch, that would have been a problem because then you lose your spacing. Vucevic at least gives them spacing at the 5, and he can still drive and go at the basket. I'm fine with that, and that will definitely help out his shooting percentages. It's just a question of, you got Aaron Gordon, you've got Vucevic, you got Fournier taking all of these shots. Am I wrong saying he's the fourth option? And then if you're saying if Markelle Fultz can play basketball,
well, if Fultz can play basketball like Fultz, then yes, he's the fifth option, but I don't think Fultz is going to be that Fultz. I think Fultz is going to be more of a facilitator. And the other thing, too, that you mentioned about those three guys, and Fournier, Gordon, and Vucevic, they're all decent outside shooters. And at worst, that doesn't mean that Jonathan Isaac needs to be a guy that's getting 3 shots to 4 shots from the outside a game. He can be more of those guys that are playing off of their perimeter game and drive to the bucket. We saw that a lot. I think if you look back at one of his better games last year against the Pelicans, they were heavily using him inside the arc, and he would start out from the outside, but then they'd totally slack off of him. He'd get that third pass, and then he'd be driving and attacking the rim, or they'd clear out the entire lane for him and then dump it inside for him, and he'd have a 3 on him, and then he'd be 5 inches taller than the guy.
I'm sorry. When you're 7 feet tall at the 3, you've got an advantage over people.
And if they have an athletic point guard like Markelle Fultz to run the transition, he is so long and so quick and such a big receiver that they can toss it up to him and lob it into him. I think there's a lot for him to grow in different ways. That's not just in the half court. I think that he can really create his own offense, dribbling the ball. Like you said, he's a decent ball handler. If he starts to jump lanes, I think he can work out that way. And also, too, I think that Fournier might become less of a need for them. And I think that he might
have a block and a steal a game too. I mean, he was just below that this year. His first year, he did have 1.2 steals, 1.1 blocks a game. He's long. He's incredibly talented defensively. I'm just waiting for the shot to get there. Can next year he put up a line of 13, 7, probably 13, 6, and 1, and 1 block, 1 steal? Yeah, I think that's probably where I've got him pegged at. My big question is, like I said, back to the point guard situation. Yeah. If you're riding all your thing on, have we truly found someone who can carry the weight as a point guard?
Or is DJ Augustin?
Or is DJ Augustin still going to be the hyper efficient, backup point guard but starting role?
Yeah.
So that's where I've got the hedge in my bets.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if we were ranking defenders, I think for this position,
he's 15. Get off my back.
No, but I'm saying if we were ranking just defenders alone, he'd probably be 3 on this list.
He's pretty good.
Probably behind Jimmy and Paul George, and people could probably make the argument that he might be better than Jimmy. But he's definitely not better than Paul George. At least defensively. But he's top 5 in this position defensively.
Yeah,
and if he's able to unlock himself and get up to where
once he starts putting on muscle.
What's that?
Once he starts putting on muscle,
insane. I mean,
get out of here.
The sky's the limit for this kid.
Yeah.
Let's move to another young guy in Miles Bridges, kind of in that same range too. We were talking about 15, 16, 17. Let's talk about the 18th guy. Miles Bridges now probably going to be unlocked a bit now with Kemba Walker being gone.
Yeah.
They want to see him more as a playmaker. Do you think that's in his game?
From college, it was. He was able to be like a third playmaker on that team. I don't know that he's actually going to be a playmaker at the NBA level. I would be surprised. Honestly, I think that he's a highlight reel of dunks right now. That's all we've seen out of him. Beyond that, meh. He can take some open threes. He's not a great shooter from the outside. He really just dominates because he was more physical and athletic than a lot of guys. So as a cutter, as a slasher, that's where Miles Bridges excels. And I don't think that he's really going to give you a lot as a point forward. That's not the role that I first see him in.
The one thing that I loved about Miles Bridges was, we look at his freshman year at Michigan State and then going into his sophomore year. The biggest knock on him was his free throw shooting, and he worked on that a ton. And he went from 68% to 85%. And I think that he does have that worker in him, where he might not be a point forward in the way of he's dropping like 5 assists a game, but in college he was near 3, and I think that he could do that if he gets more of a usage. And not having Kemba on that team, I think we might see his usage jump up at least 5% to where he's not at 15, he's at 20. And maybe
absolutely.
He's not just seen as just a driver or a cutter. He might be able to at least use himself from the outside, from the perimeter, and create his own shots, because he was able to do that a ton at Michigan State. He would usually attack from the wing and drive in, cut out, step back. He was a very crafty scorer in college, and I think that we haven't seen him with the ball in his hands enough to do that.
Yeah.
So I think we fully can't write him off as a secondary ball handler or a tertiary ball handler. And I really do wonder what he can do with the ball in his hands, because I think he's more confident with the ball in his hands. And I think being just a spot up guy wasn't really his thing. And I think now not having that other star on the team, because it's really just Terry Rozier now, and you could possibly throw out Malik Monk.
Malik Monk's a bonehead, and I love him to death.
Yeah, this team sucks.
They're
to put it frankly.
They're bad at basketball.
I wonder if Miles Bridges with a higher usage can step it up, and I think it is possible. I just wonder, will they actually give him that opportunity? Because I know that I want to say Mitch Kupchak, but he's the GM. It's not Steve Clifford, because he's the Orlando Magic coach.
He is.
James Borrego. There we go.
Yeah.
I wonder what Borrego will actually look to do now. Not that he doesn't have to just fully focus on let's give Kemba the ball.
Well, because Kemba did need the ball. That was their only way to win games last year. This year, it's the Terry Rozier and Miles Bridges show.
He now has a cleaner slate, and I wonder what he can do with these talented guys like Terry Rozier, Miles Bridges, and Malik Monk. And I think the best way for Malik Monk to grow would be seeing him with the ball in his hands more, because maybe he won't be more of a distributor, but I think he will be at least more of a creator for himself.
I did like what Bridges showed us, though. In the 25 starts he did get at the end of last year, he was putting up just shy of 10 points a game on 49, 35, 83 split. So you can't really complain about that. And if that's what you're hoping for out of him, is that he just keeps to grow in that fashion, take a couple more threes a game, maybe. He was taking 3 a game at that point, which is solid. But he's a good rebounder. He's a good defender. I just want to watch him. Like you said, if you jack up the usage, that high field goal percentage is because, I guarantee you the number of shots within 3 feet of the rim is going to be pretty damn high, because that man was just, like I said, he's a highlight reel of dunks. It was awesome. And that's the same thing I saw out of him at Summer League as well. It's just, he's incredibly athletic. He looks like a grown-ass man out there next to kids, which, to be fair, he is 4 years older than a lot of these guys, but
no, he's not.
He had 3 years.
He's 22.
Yeah.
He's 21. March 21st, 1998.
Okay, so he's still 21.
He's in the Terrence Ferguson range of age, my guy.
All right. It just looked like it then.
Yeah, I mean, but he was extremely efficient with his big body. 52% of his shots last year came less than 10 feet of the rim, and he was shooting around 60% from there. And I think the biggest thing is just him on pull-ups and just being able to show what he was in college, because he was pretty efficient when it came to pull up twos and pull ups from the elbow. And I don't think it was really the clearest of lanes that he was working with as well. I don't know if they're going to see that type of floor spacing that he will need.
Yeah,
because he was playing with a lot of shooters outside of Nick Ward at Michigan State. But if he's able to find some space, I think that he will be able to take defenders one-on-one, and I'd at least like to see him prove that throughout 82 games. Let's now move to some of these familiar names, and I think the one most intriguing name for me is going to be Jeremy Lamb. Or not Jeremy Lamb, I'm sorry, Taurean Prince. I was looking at 13, not 14. Taurean Prince. Jeremy Lamb also moving to a new team, but I think Taurean Prince moving to the Nets and finally being healthy might be able to unlock him a bit, because this was a guy that was looking near next level stud.
I'd say he's definitely an above average player, and that's the thing. Like, he can do it all. He is one of those multi tools. What do they call those? I don't even.
Swiss Army knives.
Swiss Army knife.
And I said Swiss knives.
Swiss
earlier.
knife.
That's not what it was.
But yeah, no, he can defend. He can score. He can facilitate. He's a decent rebounder. Shooting wise, he's fairly efficient.
He's a stud. 39% last year.
Does everything he needs to do, and that was on a team where to be fair, teams did have to guard Trae Young somewhere around the logo. So he might have been getting some decent looks from Trae.
Even then, he was before Trae. He was 38%.
Okay.
So I mean, it wasn't.
No, I gotcha.
Trae gave him a 0.5 bump.
Okay. But no, he's got a great opportunity this year on the Nets, because no KD means, guess what? This is your year to go earn a contract, basically. If you can come out and play here, dude's going to be getting offers, because it's going to be a super weak class for offers anyway. I think that he has got a great opportunity this year, because this Nets team looking for the playoffs anyway. And if he can step up behind Karras and Kyrie, that's fantastic. That's a win-win for everybody. And the contract right now he's on, bargain.
Yeah.
Obviously still on that rookie deal.
He is still on that rookie deal, which is going to be interesting to see what happens, because he's not going to be a net after this.
Yep.
That's for sure. So, I mean, we're going to see contract Taurean Prince play his ass off. Other than that, any other guys that you do want to throw out that could be intriguing? DeAndre Hunter did make it into this list. Do we want to talk about him, who replaced Taurean Prince?
Sure. I mean, it's just he's going to be okay. In my mind, I had him, I think, the lowest, right?
Yeah, you had him at 23. Ricky put him at 17. I put him at 20.
Yeah, I just think he's an okay player. He was highly touted coming out of college, because guess what? He was an older college player who could shoot threes and play okay defense in one of the best defensive schemes in college. So the expectation is that he's going to come into the NBA and do the same exact thing. I think that's probably to be expected. The Hawks were a terrible defensive team, and they just get better spacing and add another good defender out there. Is he a better defender than Taurean Prince? Physically, I think they're comparable. I think that I would give Hunter the edge, though, coming out of college, and I want to see how much his game translates to the NBA still. So I'm being relatively cautious on this one, because, look, you got a lot of wing to cover out there, basically, because John Collins is not going to defend anyone. So 3-4, you're going to hope for the best.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with Hunter, too, is I wonder if he can be anyewhat of a secondary ball handler. He didn't show it too much in college, but he did show the ability to be kind of like what Miles Bridges was in college.
Yeah.
Taking defenders one-on-one, especially in that national championship game. I loved what he was showing there.
He did play up.
So I wonder, just because they really don't have a secondary ball handler, it's really just Trae Young, will they rely him at all to do that? Herter really doesn't have that to his game. And then we look at the 4 and 5. It's Alex Len and John Collins, and those guys need someone to feed them the ball and set them up to be massively efficient. So I would say I think DeAndre Hunter will probably be here next year, but he can definitely take a next step up. Any other guys that you think we should talk about or hit here?
I would say the only other guy, and I don't know if we're saving it for the next segment up, but the Harrison Barnes positioning on this one, because that one...
No, yeah, Barnes is in this list. Let's talk about him.
I feel like he's a very good player, and him coming over to the Kings solved one of their biggest problems, which was they couldn't defend wings. Any above-average wing could have used the Kings last year, because Bogey's really a 2, and they had to play him out of position at the 3, and they had so many interesting lineup things. And this year, Harrison Barnes, you saw him rework his contract in the offseason to get some extended length out of it, and I think he chopped down his top-end price by a couple mil, right? So I think he went from 27 to 25 or something like that. Maybe I'm making up numbers.
I'll check that.
Sean will spot check me. But yeah, he's a really good player, and a lot of people still remember him just for shooting up bricks at the end of Golden State's first reign.
Yeah, it's front loaded. So it went from 20. I don't remember his previous contract was about. Okay, it doesn't show me. It shows me last year that he made apparently $15 million from Dallas, which doesn't make too much sense because I think it was higher than that. But he signed a 4 years, $85 million contract with the Kings. He declined a $25 million option with the Kings. He's making 24 this year, then 22, then 20, then 18. So he
really nice.
Front loaded the contract.
Yeah, so he did a good guy thing, front loaded his contract, and
for when they have to pay De'Aaron and Bogey and all that stuff, and Marvin
and Buddy
and Buddy. Yes.
Top 10 shooting guard. What? No, I think he's a great defender. He's a decent scorer. He needed to find his real mesh in that offense, though. I felt like that was the one thing that didn't click for them. They struggled down the line because of that.
Yeah.
But they're going to be a super exciting team because they can do a couple of things with this lineup. They can go big and put in Bagley, and you can either do Deadman out there to add a 5 who can shoot threes, which is terrifying on its own. Mm-hmm. But you can put in Harry Giles. You can go with Blitzia out there at the 3, do that. You could move Harry over. Like, you could do a lot of things.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of interesting decisions to make, but Barnes, I think he's probably a top 10 player. I just don't think that his finish to last year was as good as it could have been because he couldn't find his niche in that offense.
The reason, he was still massively efficient for the Kings team. I think he was like 45 and 40 from the field and then from 3. I just think, looking at where I put him, everyone else has more potential than him, and I think we saw what he is going to be. He's going to be that really 4th option on that team in that starting lineup because De'Aaron's going to be more of an option, Buddy's going to be more of an option. I think Bagley should be more of an option. So he's going to be a 4th option on that team, and I think that as long as he's efficient, he will be doing his job.
Yeah.
Where Gordon Hayward, we're not really sure what he can do, but there was moments there where he was running the second unit and he looked like all-star Gordon Hayward. And I think that the potential is there for possibly Gordon Hayward to show more of that potential. And I think if we're comparing those two players, Gordon Hayward already showed that he can be more of a ball handler and facilitator than Harrison Barnes. And he showed throughout his NBA career outside of last year that he can be extremely efficient, not as efficient as Harrison Barnes from the outside and from the field as Harrison Barnes was last year. So I think if we're looking at that, they bring very similar things. Outside of Hayward, I think can bring more of a ball handling element to his game than Harrison Barnes. So that's why Hayward got the bump over Harrison Barnes. And then with Jonathan Isaac, I'm probably too high on him, but if he's efficient from 3,
you need that guy to take a big jump.
Yeah, if he's efficient from 3 and he's just efficient in general, he's easily, again, playing better defense than Harrison Barnes. So I think that he can at least his defense is going to give him the boost there. Jingles, another guy that can distribute the ball and be efficient from 3. I just think that he can, is more of a two-way player and he can add more to that offense just due to his ball handling skills. You look at what him and Derek Favors did last year. Those two out there were a treat to watch. He won't be out there with Favors anymore, but I do wonder what him, Bojan, and Rudy Gobert can do with those that large of bodies out there, but those all 2 of them being capable ball handlers and having such a great screener in Rudy Gobert. Brandon Ingram, again, is just simply potential. What is there not to like about Brandon Ingram? And I think we saw
he's just getting better.
He's getting better.
His health scare was terrifying.
Yeah, and now he's not dealing with LeBron, too.
Yeah. So
I think that the potential is high there for Brandon Ingram to be nearly a 20-point scorer. So I think that it just comes down to Harrison Barnes, I think, is capped at a 15-point per game scorer, but extremely efficient. But he's really just going to only add shooting and D. And he's a 3-and-D player, where I think some of these guys can add more to an offense.
He's got a good mid-range.
Who gives a shit about the mid-range? It's 2019. Anyways, let's move now into 1 through 10, but let us know your thoughts on our 11 through 20. What players should have been higher, what players should have been lower, but let us know down in the comments below.